The Silver Line is a free confidential telephone helpline offering callers information, friendship and advice, or just someone to chat to around the clock, and crucially overnight and weekends when other services are shut. The helpline also acts as a single national point of contact to signpost callers to local organisations that can offer additional support and social activities in their area. Leslie is called once a week by one of the Silver Line friends, and he values that contact enormously.
We have a long chat, and I believe sometimes we go on a little bit longer than we're supposed to, but we have so much to talk about. I've never met her. Occasionally we sort of confront one another on Facebook. In other words, she puts things on Facebook because we have common interests in choral singing, because I belong to a couple of choirs, which she also does, and we exchange views about singing in choirs. So that's one of our common interests.
When I realised how isolated and lonely some older people can be, the idea came to me that we could set up a telephone service for older people. So we did. It's called the Silver Line Helpline. In 3 years, it took around 1 million calls. And it's just been announced that the Duchess of Cornwall has agreed to become our patron, even though we're not yet 4 years old. So that's a great tribute to our team. So the number is quite easy to remember. It's 0800 470 80 90. So it's 0800 because it's free, and you say to yourself, who's it for? Oh, it's for 70 80 90. I sometimes sing it. 0800 470 80 90. 0800 470 80 90. It's free, it's confidential, it's open 24/7. It offers information, friendship and advice. And some people like to be rung up on a regular basis by one of our volunteer Silver Line friends. So that's a service that creates real relationships, real friendships. And we do silver letters for people with hearing impairments. And we do silver circles, which are conference calls. So give us a go, see if you like it.
How did you first hear about the Silver Line, and why did you call them?
I had this sense of isolation. Now I'm going to be a little bit going to semantics a bit here, because to me it's not a question of loneliness so much. Loneliness is an emotion, a state of mind, and it's not simply that one's living alone, because it's quite possible to live alone and have a perfectly good life. My concern was, and still is, a question of isolation. Because if you're isolated and you're living totally on your own, you have nobody to sort of talk to, if you like, to exchange views with, to talk about how dreadful it is in America with Trump and things like that, if I'm allowed to say that.
Leslie's son by his second marriage, who's in his early 30s, is married and living in Shrewsbury, so he only sees him twice a year.
It is possible to go for days on end without seeing or talking to anybody.
The idea came to me for the Silver Line because I wrote a piece about living alone for the first time, age 71, and not liking it. They say that loneliness can be defined as having plenty of people to do something with, but nobody to do nothing with. So I would find, even after a busy day, I was coming home to an empty flat, it would be dark, there would be no one to have a cup of tea with, no one to talk about my day with, and I didn't like it. When I wrote about it, I got a huge response. Some from people who said it was brave of me to be so honest, because there is a stigma, it seems, attached to admitting you're lonely. Some from people who said they felt as I did. Some from people who said they didn't know what I was complaining about, because if you're disabled, very often you spend your whole life facing the same four walls in a sort of solitary confinement. And when I talked to experts about it and suggested to them that maybe a helpline might be able to break through the stigma and liberate people to talking about their feelings, people who otherwise wouldn't talk about it because they didn't want to be a burden, the experts told me to go ahead. So that's what we did. We got a little bit of funding from Comic Relief for the pilot, and then some funding from the big lottery. And now we're up and running. And I recommend it. People tell me it's really enjoyable. And one caller told us that when he got off the phone to us, he said, I feel like I joined the human race, which is where he should be.
Shan Robins, That's TV.